Hello, my lovely WolfPack, and welcome to the Lone Wolf Show, brought to you by WolfPack Media, the most entertaining place on YouTube for your news and commentary. I'm your host, Justin Huseman, founder and news contributor. We have a great show today, and I can't wait to get started, but before we do, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to our channel. Join the pack today. Alright guys, so I kind of got to issue a trigger warning for you guys here for this particular subject. Some of the content that we're going to be discussing today might not be suitable for some viewers, so you have been warned. Let's go ahead and get into it. My friends, we have this breaking news story for you from this morning, and before we kind of get into all the nitty-gritty of it, I want to say this. Stories like these are one of the main reasons I started this channel and kind of got into this business in the first place. Covering stories like these is probably one of the most, in my opinion, one of the most important things any of us here at the WolfPack can be doing right now. We have fun here, but I take this part of my job very, very seriously. Every day in this country, right here in the United States, thousands of children are trafficked and abused. The United States is the #1 consumer in the world, the whole world. We are the #1 consumer in the world of child trafficking and child pornography. God help us, but these are the facts. And I implore each and every one of you that are watching this right now not to shy away from these facts and to not be complicit in the evil that surrounds us. I know this subject it's hard to think about. It's hard to accept the fact that these kind of things happen here in the freest country on the planet. But I digress. These types of crimes must be brought to light. And my fellow Americans, we cannot ignore this. We must be vigilant. God's children are not for sale. So, with that being said, let's get into this story. We have here an announcement from Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. Okay, let's take a look here. This is from Fox News, just to kind of announce that a little bit. Let's see, I'm trying to play it. It's not working. Okay, here we go.
Arrest of 205 child sex predators. Unbelievable. In just 5 days. This was an incredible operation done in conjunction with the FBI and our prosecutors. Children and their families now have a chance to heal. These are online predators. Think about this. 115 victims, children. In 5 days, we were able to help. This kind of work takes a toll on the FBI agents and the prosecutors who are doing this every single day. They are working tirelessly online, dealing with the dregs of our society, the worst of the worst, the people that hide behind a computer and target our young children every single day.
Yeah, and we need to really pay attention to this here, what she says here, because I think it's really, really important. The fact that we have to like really be careful about our children being online. If any of you guys out there that are watching right now have kids and you let them just unabashedly go on the internet, I have to warn you that it's really dangerous. Kids on the internet, it's a very dangerous situation, and you may not think that it's a big deal, but I'll tell you that there's a lot of nasty shit that goes on online, dude. It's not just cute little kid videos out there. And predators, they hide in plain sight, dude. They hide in the, like, there was the whole thing, I believe there was a report on it, on the Roblox. There was a bunch of child predators that were victimizing children on Roblox, dude. Fortnite, stuff like that. There's people, because they go where the kids are, guys. So be very, very careful and listen to what AG Bondi has to say here, because I think it's really, really important.
Our law enforcement, our prosecutors sit there and deal with this every day to get these monsters off the street. Director Patel and I, almost daily in our meetings, talk about these cases and what it does to our officers and our prosecutors, but also how many lives are being saved and how many children are being helped by this. Director Patel is going to get into the specific cases with you in a minute, but what I will tell you is these depraved human beings, if convicted, will face the maximum penalty in prison, some life. We will find you, we will arrest you, and we will charge you. If you are online targeting a child, you will not escape us. The FBI and the Department of Justice will come after you, and we will prosecute you. Parents, you have to know, this is so serious. Your child has no right to privacy on the internet. None. You have to monitor what your kids are doing, whether they're playing games on the internet, on social media, any other websites that children, teenagers frequent, an online predator can find them. I always say it's from instant message to instant nightmare. Parents, they're talking to your kids.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about. Is parents, you have to listen to her, because this is serious. You think your kids, your whether they're little kids or teenagers, you think they're safe on? They're not, dude. Not if you're not paying attention to what they're doing. I know a lot of parents out there that are going to be like, oh, it's not that serious. It's very serious. This is all very serious, and this is important to hear. So, we'll go on.
Like they're other children, and they're not. They're predators. They pose as children. They get them sometimes to post explicit pictures of themselves after they talk to them. And then in some cases, they even try to blackmail the children. The suicide rate among teens ages 14 to 17 has increased as a result of this as well, because teens are taken advantage of and they're manipulated online by child predators. So all of you being here today and covering this is so important, because parents need to know. You've got to talk to your kids. They think they're talking to other children, but most of the time they're not. Director Patel, thank you.
First and foremost, to the Department of Justice under General Bondi's leadership and all its components. Because of your courage, we are here today protecting our most vulnerable, our children. Thank you, General Bondi. Thank you to so many of your colleagues here today that do this work tirelessly day in and day out and never get a moment's thanks. We should acknowledge all of them today. As the FBI director, I'm humbled to lead some of the bravest men and women in law enforcement, and I want to thank our 55 field offices, our 90-plus United States Attorney's offices, our CIOS section, our CRIM division here at the Department of Justice, and our field offices throughout the country with lawyers and prosecutors and agents working tirelessly on some of the harshest criminality we've ever seen. They don't take breaks because our children deserve a free and open society. I also want to just take a moment to emphasize the priority of this Department of Justice and this FBI. Our children. If you harm our children, you will be given no sanctuary. There is no place we will not come to hunt you down. There is no place we will not look for you. And there is no cage we will not put you in should you do harm to our children. The prioritization of this administration and General Bondi has made it abundantly clear to child predators, you will be hunted down and you will be prosecuted. And that is a refreshing thing to hear for the men and women who do this work tirelessly. And it's also an acknowledgement of the safety that we look forward to bringing America. As the Attorney General mentioned, there are a couple of cases worth highlighting. People in places of public trust have violated not only the law, but that public trust, to include teachers, law enforcement personnel, and other professionals that we look to safeguard our children have not only...
And I really want you to pay attention to what he says here. Some of these monsters, they hide in plain sight. They're in places of authority. They're in, like you said, school teachers, law enforcement officers. Like, they're in places of trust. And we need to be paying attention to that. These monsters hide in plain sight. And I want each and every one of you to know that. And anybody out there that's watching that has kids, you need to know this. This is hard. This is a hard subject. This is a really hard subject, but I had to cover it here on the channel today for our 50th episode of the Lone Wolf. It's really important to me, and I know that it's really important to you, and we need to be paying attention to this. So listen to what he has to say here.
Violated the law, but violated the trust. In Minneapolis, defendant Jeremy Francis Plonsky, a Minneapolis state trooper and former Army reservist, was arrested for producing child sexual abuse material while in uniform. Not anymore. In Norfolk, Virginia, defendant Jose Alexis Valdez Sosa, an illegal immigrant from Mexico, again, allegedly arrested for transporting a minor across state lines. No more. Another example, right here in Washington, D.C., in the Metropolitan Police Department, Officer Linwood Barnhill, a former already convicted sex offender, was arrested again for exploiting more victims, more children, while on supervised release. These are just three examples that show you the extent and the depravity of these horrific crimes. And we need to team up together with the American public to find the rest. I want to give a special thanks to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children for the tireless work they do in partnering with us. And again, I want to thank the Department of Justice and all these folks here. And Pam, thank you for never wavering to defend our children.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Patel. And this ranges from, we have cases from California to New York to Florida, our entire country. And just in 1 week, again, 115 victims. We have 205 offenders have been charged in 1 week, thanks to the FBI. So think what's happening throughout this country. Children are being taken advantage of, and we have to stop it. Thank you for covering this very important topic today. Thank you.
Will you guys take a few questions? This is a really important topic.
So, we'll get off of that for a minute. So, yeah, It's a very interesting announcement there. So with all that, I did want to give a quick shout out to our men and women in law enforcement that deal with these types of crimes every day. We here at the WolfPack thank you from the very, very bottom of our hearts. And we're eternally grateful for the work that you do. We also understand the toll that this kind of work must take on a person, and we appreciate everything you guys do for this country, and keep it up, because our country definitely needs you. You're doing God's work here. So thank you guys. If you're in law enforcement and you deal with this kind of stuff, we thank you and we appreciate you. I kind of wanted to, since we're on the subject, I kind of wanted to show you guys, or read to you guys, some things that I found pertaining to this. We have this here from justice.gov. This is kind of just like a report overall on child sex trafficking and whatnots. Let's see here. I'm trying to find it. My computer's being kind of gay. Okay. So it says child sex trafficking in the United States. Child sex trafficking is a pervasive and underreported crime, and one of the most complex forms of child exploitation. Significantly, trafficked children, who predominantly are between the ages of 14 and 17, are advertised and presented as adults. They often appear to be adults and are trained by traffickers to lie about their age to buyers and law enforcement. Under federal criminal law, child sex trafficking, also referred to as domestic minor sex trafficking, commercial sexual exploitation of minors, or even inappropriately the prostitution of children, is defined as the recruiting, enticing, harboring, transporting, providing, obtaining, advertising, maintaining, patronizing, or soliciting of a person under 18 years of age. Knowing or recklessly disregarding that the person is a minor and that the person will be caused to engage in a commercial sex act. A commercial sex act is any sex act on account of which anything of value is given to or received by any person and is not limited to financial transactions. Child sex trafficking thus encompasses not only those situations where the child or the child's trafficker receives payment for the sex act, but also those where there is no identified trafficker and the buyer directly solicits sex with a child in exchange for food, shelter, clothing, drugs, or other items of value. The law also criminalizes knowingly benefiting financially or by receiving anything of value from participation in a venture that has engaged in a child sex trafficking act. In contrast to the sex trafficking of adults, child sex trafficking does not require the use of threat of force, fraud, or coercion. Although traffickers and buyers often use such tactics with children, if the victim is a minor and the offender knew or recklessly disregarded the fact that a minor would be engaged in a commercial sex act, then the offender engaged in the child sex trafficking. If the offender has a reasonable opportunity to observe the victim, which is often the case, then there is no need to prove knowledge or reckless disregard of the victim's minor status. And then it kind of goes on here. Here's kind of the numbers and the stats on this. Once again, this is from justice.gov. I don't, any of this stuff I have, I'm not able to bring up on the screen for you guys, but this is from www.justice.gov / child sex trafficking in the United States. So if you guys want to take a look at this full report, you can do that. And I encourage all of you to do that. Child sex trafficking by the numbers. While it is very difficult to determine the true volume of child sex trafficking, research has helped shed light on the dynamics of these crimes taking place in the United States. Bullet point 1 here says, according to one study from 2010 to 2015, approximately 1,400 individuals were arrested at the federal, state, and local levels on the specific charge of sex trafficking a minor, with an increasing number arrested each year. The research team identified child sex trafficking arrests in every single state except for Alaska, Hawaii, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Bullet point 2, the average age of the traffickers in federal prosecutions was about 28 to 29 years old. Roughly 3/4 of them were male. Nearly all of them were U.S. citizens. U.S. citizens. Bullet point 3. Federal prosecutions of child-only sex trafficking cases increased 17% from 2019 to 2020. Gee. Huh. That's interesting. That's very, very interesting. And children made up 69% of victims in newly charged sex trafficking cases in 2020. Bullet point 4. Looking at federal trafficking cases prosecuted in 2020, just over half of the victims were children, with victim ages ranging from 4 to 17 years old. From 4 to 17. Wow. When they were exploited, with an average age of about 15 years old. 89% of child victims in active sex trafficking cases were between the ages of 14 and 17. And then the last bullet point here, 45.1% of victims knew their trafficker prior to becoming a victim. So let's keep that in mind. Let's see if I got anything more on this. This is a kind of... this part kind of explains like the recruiting process of how some of these things happen. Traffickers include those who recruit, control, and sell children for sex to others, those who pay for sex with a child, and those who facilitate the crime, such as online advertisers, owners of hotels and motels where the commercial sex takes place, and drivers who transport victims. Third parties are not always involved in child sex trafficking. Some child sex trafficking victims, such as those engaged in survival sex, which is commercial sex engaged in by the child who sees it as the only means to find money or food or shelter, may interact directly and exclusively with the person providing items of value to the child in exchange for sexual acts. Traffickers often target vulnerable children, exploiting community instability, poverty, and lapses in parental supervision. Keep that in mind, parents. To expand their opportunities to victimize children. For example, homeless and runaway minors, minors in the foster care and juvenile justice systems, children in communities that are impoverished, have a strong gang or drug presence, or are dealing with natural disasters. I actually, at some point, I'd like to do a report on a lot of times child sex trafficking takes place in war zones, quite a bit actually. I'll have to do a separate report on that at some point for you guys, but it's a real problem. Obviously, one of the most recent things that I can think of is the war in Ukraine right now. There are a lot of children being exploited in the Ukraine right now because of that war. Anyway, I'll read on. Where was I? Trying to find where I was. Unaccompanied and undocumented minors and minors whose online presence is unsupervised by adults are all at greater risk of victimization. Children may be sold for sex by their own family members. In fact, the Counter Trafficking Data Collaborative, the world's first data portal to include human trafficking case data contributed from multiple agencies, found that based on global data analyzed, family members are involved in 36% of child sex trafficking cases. Familial trafficking often includes younger victims, and the exploitation can take place through advertising the child online, making the child available through organized child sex abuse rings or networks, or through individual contacts. Family members' motivation may be for money, drugs, or production of child sexual abuse material. Such abuse may also be a continuation of intergenerational trauma. Sex trafficking occurs in rural, urban, and tribal areas and impacts children of all races and socioeconomical status, and all ages, genders, and sexual orientations. However, evidence suggests children of color, LGBTQ plus children, and children from lower income families and communities are disproportionately affected by child sex trafficking. With the proliferation of social media, offenders have easy access to victims with whom they would not otherwise come in contact. Some children are recruited into sex trafficking by their peers at school, lured in by young adults who are both victims and intermediaries in the trafficking organization, or groomed by young charismatic traffickers who pretend to be a romantic partner to gain their confidence before coercing them into commercial sex. Once recruited, traffickers frequently use violence, intimidation, drug addiction, and psychological manipulation to trap victims into continued sexual exploitation. Victims are commonly advertised online and transported to hotels, motels, or residences where they meet sex purchasers. Colloquially known as Johns, customers, dates, tricks, or clients. Victims often receive little to no financial proceeds despite promises to the contrary by the traffickers. And they frequently face physical and sexual assault by their trafficker, including buyers. Traffickers are more likely than other perpetrators of child sexual exploitation to have documented criminal histories, often for violent offenses. So, yeah. Let's see. I'm scrolling. I don't want to read the whole entire dealio here. This is kind of important, I think. Who are trafficking offenders? Both the purchasers of sex from a minor and the individuals facilitating that purchase are referred to as traffickers. Okay, we know that. Most offenders are male, but the facilitators of child sex trafficking are not otherwise a homogeneous group. Some are charismatic, sometimes referred to in the commercial sex industry as finesse or Romeo pimps, while others are aggressive, sometimes referred to in the commercial sex industry using racist and problematic terms like gorilla or gorilla pimps. Charismatic traffickers tend to be socially skilled, manipulative, and charming. They appeal to the emotional needs of the victim and often use the ruse of a romantic relationship. By contrast, aggressive offenders use frequent extreme violence to exert power and control. These acts are often torturous and may involve physical assault, branding or tattooing victims, burning them with cigarettes, striking them with implements such as wire hangers, choking, and forcing them to engage in humiliating and degrading acts. Oof, this is hard. Anyway, I do want to kind of what's this here? That's just a case study. There's lots of case studies on this, so go through that. Yeah, this is all. I'm trying to go through all this with you guys. There's quite a few pages here on all this stuff. Anyway, we'll just kind of go to a shorter list here. I got this here from it's called love146.org. 10 facts about child trafficking. And I thought this was kind of important to go through with you guys here. I know we're kind of going way over time with this video, but I think it's really important, so we're gonna go through it. It's got a couple of bullet points here that we'll go through. The first one: at any given moment, an estimated 50 million people are being victimized in situations of trafficking and exploitation, including forced marriage worldwide. 25% of these are children. So 50 million, so 25% of 50 million. That's millions of children worldwide. Right now, as we're speaking. I just want you guys to keep that in mind. Throughout this video, I'm going to drill some shit into you guys right now because, like I said, we can't be complicit. We can't put our heads in the sand with this. We have to look at this. That's why I gave you guys a trigger warning. We're looking at a lot of shit today that is pretty uncomfortable to look at, but we have to look at it. The second bullet point here: human trafficking is any situation of exploitation that a person cannot refuse or leave because of threats, violence, coercion, deception, and or abuse of power. In the case of child sex trafficking, force, fraud, or coercion do not need to be present, and the crime is simply the exchange of any sex act with a child for anything of value. Yeah, we already kind of went through that with the last report. Third bullet point: traffickers exploit vulnerabilities, and being a child is an inherent vulnerability. Under U.S. federal law, all children involved in commercial sex are victims of human trafficking. Sadly, only about half of U.S. states have laws that protect sexually exploited children from being prosecuted for prostitution. Yeah, that's a problem. I noticed. I just did that report a couple weeks ago on how California was trying to pass a law, but that law was blocked regarding child trafficking and child exploitation. If you guys want to go check that out, I'd implore you to go check that out. California is one of those states where it's really hard to kind of think about. Anyway, before I get off, let's go to the fourth bullet point. You'll often hear about trafficking hotspots. The truth is that trafficking occurs wherever there are people. Spikes in reported trafficking may also be influenced by an increased focus in that region, or research, training, or an awareness campaign prompting the national hotline. Bullet point 5 here. Sex trafficking is not just a women and girls issue. About 14% of those in our U.S. survivor care have been boys. Traffickers can look like anyone and don't fit one stereotype. They could be anyone. Love 146 has connected with situations of trafficking in which exploiters have been family members, peers, romantic partners, educators, employers, community leaders, and clergy. And as you've seen from that announcement by Director Patel, He said even cops, a state trooper, was arrested in this whole thing here. Anyway, sometimes youth continue going to school, living at home, and participating in extracurricular activities even while they are being trafficked. Often a rescue isn't the only or best way to freedom. Training to recognize and respond appropriately to trafficking, as well as trauma-informed spaces to help create pathways for more victims to exit exploitation. And the last bullet point here, child trafficking is not a new phenomenon. Human trafficking has been happening forever. In 2003, the United Nations introduced the Trafficking Protocol, introducing a universally agreed upon definition of trafficking in persons. So that's what that's got to say there. Oh my God. Yeah, so it has like a little counter here. It says 49.57 million people are being trafficked, exploited, or in forced marriages right now. Yeah. That's crazy. That's a lot. That's a lot. But I want you guys to burn that into your brain, dude. Like, slavery still exists all around the world, man. There's more children right now, well, and adults, I suppose. There are more people right now that are involved in some sort of slavery, whether it be sexual or otherwise, than at the height of the transatlantic trade, slave trade. So think about that. When slavery was mostly legal around the world, there was less people in slavery than there is today. And we have international laws and whatnot about it today, but there's more today than there were when it was legal. So I want you guys to kind of mull that over in your heads a little bit. I want to kind of conclude this video with maybe a few helpful things that might help prevent warning signs, education and awareness. I got this here from this is from polyklaus.org, POLLYKLAAS.org. Let's see here. I kind of wanted to read this for you guys to kind of close off this episode with how we can try to help prevent some of this from happening before it ever even happens. Here is it says risk factors and warning signs. So these are some warning signs, indicators that a child might be at risk. Let's read. Several indicators may suggest a child is at risk of or already experiencing trafficking. While no single factor confirms victimization, awareness can prompt timely intervention. Warning signs can include sudden changes in behavior, unexplained shifts in personality, increased secrecy, or involvement with questionable associates. Physical indicators can be bruises, burns, tattoos, often used for branding, or multiple cell phones. Another one is unusual access to money or luxuries, items outside a child's means, unexplained absences from school, or new expensive belongings. And then last but not least, online solicitations, communication with unknown adults, or receipt of inappropriate content. Recognizing these red flags can help adults intervene before a child is coerced or further harmed. So I think those are pretty significant warning signs I want you guys to be looking out for. especially if you have children. Here are some strategies for prevention. Preventing child trafficking requires a multifaceted approach involving parents, educators, law enforcement, and the broader community. So, yeah, this is why I think it's so important for all of us, if you live in a certain community, that you need to be a part of that community, because this is how we protect children. We keep each other close, you know. Let's see. Preventing child trafficking. Yeah, I already read that. And here are some strategies to kind of help reduce the risk. It first starts with education and awareness. I think this is a really important one too, because I don't think enough parents do this. Teaching children about healthy boundaries, online safety, and the realities of child trafficking can empower them to recognize and report suspicious behavior. Yes, we have to have a conversation with our children about these things. I know that it's not a subject that any parent wants to talk about, but if we're going to prevent some of these things from happening, then I think it's important to kind of note this. Training educators, healthcare providers, and social workers to identify warning signs ensures more eyes are watching out for vulnerable children. Yes, I agree with that, but also I would look out for people in those industries too, because like I said, I don't know, these child traffickers and exploiters of children, they hide in some of the most vulnerable places, daycares, schools, even police stations. And I'm not trying to scare anybody, man. I just want you guys to be aware and to keep your eyes open, keep your head on a swivel, dude, especially if you got kids. Strengthening community ties. I think that's a pretty important one. Fostering environments where children feel safe and supported, such as through neighborhood watch groups, community centers, and faith-based organizations. Ensuring local coalitions coordinate with law enforcement to monitor high-risk areas and share information on potential threats. I hate to be one of those guys, but if you see something, say something. Like, I'm just saying, especially as it pertains to children. That's really important. And here's probably, I think, the most important one: parental and caregiver involvement. Keeping lines of communication open is essential. Regularly discussing internet safety, friendships, and daily routines helps build trust and enables children to confide in adults about uncomfortable or dangerous encounters. We have to be talking to our kids. And I know it's hard. It's pretty easy when they're little, but especially when they're older teenagers, I know it's hard to keep communication open like that, but you have to be making sure that you're talking to your kids every day. I know that it's kind of cheesy, but the sitting at the dinner table and going around the table and asking, "What'd you guys do today?" You know, it just little shit like that. Keeping those lines of communication open between parents and children, that's essential in stopping or preventing stuff like this from happening. Monitoring social media platforms and setting age-appropriate boundaries can deter online predators. It can, but doesn't always. And I know that I know people in my own life that I've met that are not very good at monitoring their children's social media. We need to make sure that we're doing that. This day and age, it used to not be a problem. It used to be a lot harder to exploit children back in the day, but with the advent of the internet, bro, we have to be. I would encourage all of you to not be letting your kids go online. That's my opinion. You can take it or leave it. I don't think anybody under the age of like 17 needs to be going online. That's my opinion. And I'm a guy that does stuff online. This is coming from me. a podcaster. So let's make sure. Let's see here. So it goes on to say stuff about policy and legislation, which I completely agree with, but I don't think there's very much we can do about it unless you're one of those people that works within the government. Yeah, supporting laws that strengthen penalties for this stuff. Yeah, that's important. Encouraging local representatives to prioritize anti-trafficking efforts. Yeah, well, I agree with all that, but yeah, guys, thanks for kind of sticking with me for this long in this video. And I know it's a lot longer than what I usually do for my episodes, and I'm a little late getting the video out because I had to do all this research before I did this episode. But this is my 50th episode of the Lone Wolf Show, so I figured there's a lot of other stuff going on in the news today, and I'll probably get to that later tonight. But I thought this was really important. This is a really, really important subject, especially to me. It's really near and dear to my heart. A lot of this was actually what made me kind of up in arms about this whole child trafficking thing. Is of course there's the Epstein stuff that I'm still waiting for. But it was really, if you guys ever saw that movie, Sound of Freedom, I would really implore you to go watch that movie. It really kind of opened my eyes to how some of this stuff works, how often it happens. Look up anything that has to do. The main character in that movie is a real person. His name is Tim Ballard. And I would really encourage you guys to look up some of the stuff that he does. He has an organization called the OUR. And I would implore you to look that up. Donate to that organization if you have the finances to do so. Not all heroes wear capes. He's a hero in my opinion. He's out here doing God's work, and I would implore you guys to look him up and look into what some of the things that he does and the things that he said about the subject. But yeah, we'll leave it there for you guys. Stay tuned for our next segment I'll be doing later tonight, our nightly segment of the Lone Wolf. Stay tuned for that. Go ahead and check out the boys, the other members of the WolfPack put out a few videos last night too. We had another gaming video from our tech guy, Antone. We had another WolfPack Reacts episode from my co-host, Benaya. So I would encourage you guys to go check those out. And you can follow us on X and Facebook. And make sure that you subscribe to us here on the channel at WolfPack Media 92. And we will see you guys in the next episode. Peace.